Hi, everybody. So today we're talking about mindset. I'm Colleen Mitchell. I'm a life coach, a writer, a host of a podcast on type 1 diabetes, and I also have a full-time job working in the power industry. So what I'm going to talk about today is first off the definition of mindset, why mindset matters, what fixed mindset is, what growth mindset is, and how to move from fixed mindset to growth mindset. So the definition of mindset is how you see the world. It's how you interpret your environment and how you react to it. How I like describing it is that it's an established set of attitudes that someone holds. Maybe it's born from your upbringing, your previous experience, or maybe both. So why does mindset matter? Well, another thing I like saying is that how you think about something determines how you experience it. Mindset is the difference between someone who always blames other people and someone who takes responsibility for everything in their world. That's being a victim versus being empowered. So a way to look at this is something called the self-coaching model. I learned about this from Brooke Castillo from the Life Coach School. She has a fantastic podcast called the Life Coach School Podcast. And the model is 5 steps. It starts with a circumstance, and then it goes to a thought, feeling, action, and result. So there are circumstances in the world. Those are neutral and they're outside of us, so we can't control them. And then we have thoughts about those circumstances. And thought is just a sentence in the brain. Our feelings come from those thoughts. So everything that we feel as an emotion, not sensations like touching your hand or something like that. All feelings come from thoughts. So if I feel angry, it's because of a thought that I have. After feelings comes action. So based off of how we feel, we do things. If I feel empowered, I'm going to do things that make me feel empowered. And then from our actions come the results. So everything we do generates a result in our world. And so you can look at your life and your results to find out what you're actually thinking. So if I think that going on a live Facebook is scary, then I'm probably not going to prepare as well as if I think it's fun. So let's move on to fixed mindset. I'm going to read a quote from Carol Dweck, who wrote an entire book on mindset, and I highly recommend it. It's believing that your qualities are carved in stone. The fixed mindset creates an urgency to prove yourself over and over. If you have only a certain amount of intelligence, a certain personality, and a certain moral character, well, then you'd better prove that you have a healthy dose of them. It simply wouldn't do to look or feel deficient in these most basic characteristics. So when someone with a fixed mindset encounters any obstacles, they're not as likely to find ways to overcome them. They might look at the very first obstacle on their road to financial independence, and because they're in a fixed mindset, they won't look for ways to get around it. So fixed mindset is basically where failure is seen as the limit of your abilities. Some examples of thoughts that are fixed mindset. I'm so stupid, I can't do this. I've tried so many things, but none of them worked. It's too hard, so I'll never be able to get the hang of it. Some people are born with talent, and I'm not one of them. I'm so bad at organizing, math, art, running. Pick your noun or your verb. Another one is I'll never get out of debt. Or a personal example of fixed mindset, I can't run. Or I'm bad at public speaking. I've overcome both of those, to be honest. So in contrast to fixed mindset, there's growth mindset. And I'm going to read another quote from Carol Dweck. This growth mindset is based on the belief that your basic qualities are things you can cultivate through your efforts. Although people may differ in every which way in their initial talents and aptitudes, interests, or temperaments, everyone can change and go through application and experience. We're always capable of learning and doing more. It's the understanding that we're not stuck in one place forever. So some examples, parents praising kids for their effort or how smart they are, instead of, well, no, it is based on their effort and not how smart they are. So my parents, when I was growing up, praised me for being smart, and that encouraged me to not push myself. Another example of growth mindset is I know I have the ability to learn this. Or, I don't have an answer for you right now, but I'll find out. Math is challenging, but not impossible. Everybody has to practice to be good at something, even people we think are naturally talented. I've gotten a lot of feedback recently from speeches that I've given that I'm a natural public speaker. And I actually worked really hard at that. I'm in Toastmasters, and I practiced my speech for about 50 hours before I gave it to a live audience. And that's way more practice than anybody else ever gets. Another growth mindset example is I'm willing to change myself in order to become better at something, or I like to try new things. So how do you move from fixed to growth? Funnily enough, you can make the shift by just deciding. So I have a good example about this. When I was in junior high school, I had a Spanish class, and the teacher was Bolivian. His first language was Portuguese. His second language was English, and his third language was Spanish. So I was learning Spanish from someone whose third language was Spanish. I ended up really not liking my Spanish class, and I didn't do the work. I did the token amount of work just to pass the class. I didn't keep with Spanish after the class was over. And throughout most of my early adulthood, I didn't like Spanish. I didn't like thinking about learning Spanish. And I thought that I would just never learn Spanish. I could never get the hang of it. But then I realized that it was my choice, my fault, and my responsibility that if I wanted to learn Spanish, I could. So at my current workplace, for a while, my cube mate was Colombian and he spoke Spanish. So whenever I would pass him in the hallway, I'd say, "Hola, ¿cómo está?" And he would talk back to me in Spanish. And so we would figure out kind of ways I would practice my Spanish with him, and he would practice his English with me. And I just figured out that I could learn Spanish if I wanted to. So I started going through Duolingo. I learned Spanish more. I practiced with him some more. But the point is that I switched my mindset from fixed to growth on that. So another way that you can move from fixed to growth is to reframe how you say things. You can say, "I have experienced discomfort when running in the past," instead of saying, "I can't run." And this is a personal example. For the longest time, I hated running. And I would tell people, "I can't run. I don't run," until I was tired of saying that and just decided that maybe I could do a couch to 5K. And I did the couch to 5K. And at the end of the couch to 5K, I did a race. And I actually won third in my age group, which is kind of astonishing. I haven't run since then, but that's a different story. But the point is that I went from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset when it comes to running. And then you can also practice self-awareness just by recognizing when you're thinking fixed thoughts and not judging them. You can just acknowledge them and then try reframing them. That's a really good way to move from fixed to growth. So the personal impact for me from going from fixed mindset to growth mindset is that I actually like who I am now. When I had a fixed mindset, I was really filled with negativity, and I always put myself and my abilities down. It was really hard to accept compliments from other people. That's something I'm still working on. I never tell people that, "Oh, you're wrong," or, "Oh, you shouldn't say that," because that's not true. I'll always thank them, but it's really hard for me to internalize that they actually mean it. And then the last thing here is that life is not a zero-sum game. And what I mean by that is, oh wow, my camera just got really blurry for some reason. Sorry about that. Come on, autofocus. Okay, there we go. So life is not a zero-sum game. That just means that if somebody makes more money than you do, that doesn't take any money away from you. You still have basically infinite potential to earn more. If somebody is successful, that doesn't take any success away from you. And that all has to do with your mindset. So if you have a growth mindset, you can realize that life is not a zero-sum game. There's plenty out there for everybody. So if you liked this topic and you would like more content like this, please consider joining my email list. Every Wednesday, I send out an email just packed with inspiration and value. It's called Inspiration Wednesday. The link to sign up to that is in the description. And if you sign up through that link for the 10 tips to do what you said you're going to do, even if you don't feel like doing them, you'll have the opportunity to pre-order my ebook for a discount. So my ebook is coming out on May 31st. It's called Feed the Good Wolf, and it's a practical adulting guide. It's basically all of the tools and tips that I would have loved to have when I was just starting college or just getting out of high school. So I think it's packed with value. It's almost 30,000 words at this point, and I'm still finalizing it. If you're already subscribed, keep an eye out for the next email on Wednesday, because there will be a link at the bottom to grab that discount. And with all of that, thank you for joining me on what was actually my first live. So, bye.